Days here, and analyst, grain of salt, Mike Flaum. How you doing? With the new Twitter handle at grain of salt SF.
Boom.
Announced here, live, brand new.
Live and breaking. This is the whole point of the stream today. Grain of salt's Twitter unveil. No, we've got lots to talk about grain. And Tim, welcome to the show, buddy.
Thanks, sir. Great to be here.
Great to be here as well. It's still at Tim Kotzman. Check him out. So
Yep.
where do we start, guys? 58K gang coming back, the stretch test as we've been calling it here with digital credit getting tested to all-time lows. STRC, trading in the upper 70s, low 80s today. SATA's getting tested. MSTR is kind of taking a bloodbath here in price. What's causing it, and how concerned should we be?
Look, I think the structure is fine. I think the framework's in place. If you go to strategy.com right now, it tells you what the effective yield is at 7. Excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. The effective yield is 15% on STRC, so it's already showing you in live time. Apparently that change was made a few weeks ago. I didn't realize where it shows you both the strategy pays 11.5% based upon the par value. That's where you see the 11 and the left-hand side. Current dividend, which is variable, 11.5% on the left side. But the effective yield is 15.1%. So people, if you buy in at $76, your effective yield is 15%. And there's no AI needed. You don't need to do any calculation or figure out how they do it. It's right there. And so for that effective yield, now strategy does not pay the 15%. That's assuming the $76 goes back to the 100. At $76 price, you're getting effective yield of 15% because you're buying it at a discount of $23 and 87 cents to the the trading price. So that's the effective yield. Strategy only pays 11.5% based upon the $100 par value. And so that's where this is. So I think that he's telling people, hey, you're already going to get a higher effective yield if you buy it today. And I think they're going to have to raise it. The other part is the 1 month VWAP. It's below $95, lower left-hand corner. And they say in their guidance that if it's below $95, they'll recommend a 50 basis points or a 0.5% higher. So I think they'll come in at a 50 basis point jump at a minimum, in the next cycle when they update it. And I would recommend them to do a 50% basis point jump. Hopefully the price of Bitcoin will go up. And then if that works, great. If it doesn't, they can do another 25 or 50 basis point jump. So that's what I would recommend. I'm not running the company. I don't work there. But that's the way I see it. It's based upon their dashboard and the guidance that they've given before.
Yeah. It seems like the 50 basis point jump is inevitable at this point. There's been some chatter on X that I've been monitoring that, some people are, panicking. Oh, this is crazy, and strategy shouldn't increase the dividend on STRC. But everything they've said, all the guidance they've given before is based on that VWAP calculation. So, I think rate increase is coming. Next week they'll announce it at the beginning of the month. Seems inevitable. How much does the literal yield matter? 15% versus 15.5% effective. Not a lot probably, but it's the long-term signal, right, Grain?
I think so. And so not only is there a long-term signal, but there's a short-term signal. Look, the biggest problem with strategy is their transparency. The website, you clicked on dividends, right there it shows everything. So they have made this is a company that has given massive amounts of transparency. And people are like, oh, I don't like what this is doing it updates every 15 seconds. That's what they said. But most companies only give an update quarterly on their, whether it's prefs or whether it's bonds. They only give an update quarterly on what their holdings are, what their values are. In this case, they're updating it every 15 seconds. So I think that's the part where people don't know how to read this. Now, I want to point out this, and I think this is a good point to go through this. Hopefully this is helpful. A lot of people are saying that the cost, for STRC, Bitcoin's got to go run higher and faster than 11.5 or 12%. Now, what strategy shows on this page over here is they show the BTC ARR, BTC break-even ARR, and they say it's 3.39%. And they're not showing this at being 11 or 12% blended from the prefs. And the reason why that is because they base this on the value of the BTC reserve of $50 billion. Look, if you believe in Bitcoin, then Bitcoin has this value of $50 billion. And what they're saying is that the BTC break even is that as long as Bitcoin goes up 3.39% per year, the BTC years of dividends is 29 and a half years, right? That's assuming if they had to sell the Bitcoin. But in this case, the break even point is, as long as it's 3.39, then they can pay this in perpetuity. And that's what people aren't getting. They think it's just, they look at each instrument, but they don't look at the total Bitcoin held. And I think that's what people miss. I don't know how else you could say this when you read the dashboard, but they do that. And by the way, you could check what I'm saying. If where it says BTC ARR, if you type in 0 in there, let's see what it says.
Yeah.
So when you type in 0, it recalculates, but the 3.39 stays the same. Make the BTC make it 13%. Right? And it does the the BTC break even does not change, right? Because it's calculating that based upon the total value.
Yep.
So I think that's how this works, and people are like, it doesn't seem to make sense.
Right, right. Yeah, good framing for this is like, if you retired with, an $8 million nest egg and you had, $150,000 in to fund your lifestyle, or $200,000 a year, you'd need a break even of, probably like what, 3.5% of that nest egg. So it's like if your investments can outperform that long term, you can draw on it. Same idea, right? When you're funding your lifestyle in retirement and you need your investments to perform, you're funding your lifestyle, same thing. Strategies just perpetually funding that dividend income. And I stepped on you there, Tim. You had some commentary on that.
Yeah, it's something very important to say. All of these dashboards are part of the Make BTC Great Again campaign that we are waging against the world. Back to you, Tyler.
That's right.
Yeah,
it is.
So Tyler, so look, change the price of Bitcoin to 100,000. Somebody will say, well, this didn't. Now before you hit the checks or the refresh, look at right now the BTC ARR is 3.39%, right?
Right.
And 29.5.
Yep.
Change it to 100. Now click do it. And hit the little circle thing. 100,000.
There we go.
Now you see that you go from 39 to 49 years, and the break-even point drops down to 2%, right? Yeah. Because and it's still showing the BTC volatility. Change the Bitcoin price to 126, the previous all-time high, and now your break-even point drops down to 1.6%, and the BTC years of dividends goes to 62 years. Now, what we just did right here, if you go to, there may be an exception. There's no other company that does this except for maybe Strive, right, on their website. Right. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But the point here is that there's no company that does this in real time for their prefs or for their debt. They don't give you a real time. And by the way, if they did give it to you, they don't give you the ability to change the assumptions. And what strategy does here is they do this. So if you now put in a price of 30,000, let's say Bitcoin drops in half, go to 30,000. Excuse me. So they have 14.9 years of dividends if Bitcoin drops to 30,000, and yep. BTC break even a little bit under 7%.
Yep. Still plenty of runway, obviously. And yeah, one of the big takeaways, it's funny seeing how, strategies stack so much Bitcoin since October. When we plugged in that all-time high of 126, I'll just put that in there again. It's just like kind of wows you. Their BTC reserve now, you know, based on the last all-time high, is over $100 billion, and you know, that was something we kind of talked about. Is, you know, strategy is going to hit this threshold, 100 billion. Someday they're going to be $1 trillion company, and on and on. And you can kind of see that here as they've accumulated in this down market. Speaking about
So wait,
that,
I want to go to something on that.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
this
yeah.
is
Go ahead.
Good. This is good to do this. So go to give me 1 second. Go to
Tyler, real quick, I know we're in the depths of a bear market, but there's something actually even more important to if you can start a GoFundMe for some cough drops for grain, that would be appreciated.
Brain.
so
I
go to T
wish I could
North.
digitally send them
Yeah,
to
yeah,
you.
thank you. Yeah, no, this cold has been terrible. So go to tnorth.com.
Oh, I hear that's a good website.
It's a pretty good website.
So I've heard.
I know the guy that built it. So if you go to tnorth.com,
Yeah, let's bring that up here.
and
All right.
and you're going to go to tools, and go to Bitcoin. No, go to tools, and go to which one do I want? Strategy 1 million Bitcoin tracker. Okay, now scroll down. Now some things that, and stop right here for a second.
Yep.
So acquisition velocity. So people see these charts up and to the right. Everybody loves charts, always up and to the right. The other thing that humans understand incredibly well is rank. Rank is, you got the Olympics, gold, silver, bronze. Everybody gets it, right? Now, obviously, if you win the gold medal, you know, great. But now let's go down to rank. Scroll down. Now, stop right here. Quarterly acquisition ranking. So you can view all 24 quarters. You might want to make the font a little bit bigger. But the current quarter in a down market, this is the third best quarter for Bitcoin acquisition out of all 25 quarters. It's right there. It's ranked number 3. And so Q4 2024 was the most Bitcoin acquired in a quarter, 194,000. It tells you right there. So rank is different than, you know, looking at it because it changes the order. It's not in chronological order. If you scroll down,
Yep.
go down, keep on going. Now here's all the purchases, right? And this is the way strategy presents the info. And it's like, okay, they've done all the 114 purchases. Okay. But you're like, how are they doing in a down market? That's where if you scroll back up now, here's your rank. So Q1 2026, which is when Bitcoin, that was their second best quarter ever. And in the crappiest down market, stress test, it's the third best quarter out of 25 quarters. And so now strategy, this information is all taken from Strategy's website, but this is something that I worked with Trollstein, Dan Oxenvod, who's part of True North. And I said to him, I said, hey, we have to do rank. And he's like, rank? And I'm like, yeah, rank the quarters based upon the most. And then he made this. So I made this originally in a Google Sheet, and then he now this auto updates through APIs and so forth. So, you know, for this quarter, I think they're you know, you can add the two numbers together. This is really, you know, unprecedented with how well they're doing. And the question always comes up, what's going to happen if Bitcoin drops 50%? Okay, well, it just did that. Is strategy going to have access to capital markets? No, it won't. And I'm like,
Yes, it will.
Yes, it will. And everybody's like, there it is. And now, so again, rank is different than, you know, just is a different concept than showing chronologically. Again, I'm not making stuff up. But when somebody says math to me, I back it up with this. And they're like, Grain, well, I don't know how you remember this. I'm like, I don't remember everything, but I know how to go to a website and read stuff, or I go to Strategy's website. And a lot of people don't do that. And the naysayers that are out there, you know, they say things, oh, they're not going to be able to get to the capital markets. I go, do you have anything to back it up? They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, do you just want to say something? So that's how I think. You know, did I pull a trick on you guys? Am I misstating anything?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. And that's the thing, like, we kind of miss, you know, with price being down and narratives flipping so quickly, at least on X, you know, and certainly in investor sentiment, it was just 2 months ago, Strategy raised $1.5 billion in 2 days with STRC. Now it's trading at a 15% effective yield off par. I mean, just seems like you know, STRC isn't a product, I've necessarily invested in personally, not seeking the yield, but I mean, the upside there is now like you've got basically a 33% upside if it gets back to par. And in the meantime, you can collect 15% on your money. That seems like, if you believe in Bitcoin, if you believe in this digital credit product, wow, that's a really interesting opportunity. Seeing the average Bitcoin price on the side here, that just kind of gives you an idea. It's like, oh yeah, like Q4 of 2024, that was clearly a bull market. Q3 of 25, clearly a bull market where the prices were really high. This is an outlier here, Q3 of 2020, because that's when Strategy initially,
That's when they initially
started their strategy.
So,
Yeah.
the other thing when you look at this, and this is where I use numbers, and people are like, Grain, you're like a math whiz. So there's two things. What's happening is they're acquiring more Bitcoin as the price of Bitcoin goes higher, right? Because obviously, the average price here for Q2 is 75,000. The average BTC price is 75,000. But they've acquired, comparing it to Q3 of 2020, they've acquired more than double the amount of Bitcoin, and the price is effectively 6 times higher, 7 times higher. So that's counterintuitive. Most people would think, well, they can acquire a lot more Bitcoin when the price of Bitcoin is lower. Actually, when the price of Bitcoin is the highest, and they're at the highest MNAV, which you see in Q4 of 2024, that's when they acquired the most Bitcoin because the MNAV was 3, and that's when they arbitraged that immediate. So you're selling a $1 stock for $3. The $2 on the top is the arbitrage. That's the part that they keep that accretes to buying Bitcoin. So the stock that's how 3-to-1 MNAV works. And so they sold that, and that's why the fourth quarter of 2024, it was the most Bitcoin, and even though the price is effectively 50% higher than now, I mean, if you assume 60,000, right, versus 90,000, then they acquired more. So Strategy can do two things. They can acquire a bunch of Bitcoin when the price is down in nominal terms, and they can be more efficient as the price goes higher. And when I talk to people, they're like, oh, yeah, so I'm using some math. I'm like, this is just you could just see the numbers here. And most people are like, well, I didn't think of it that way. I'm like, oh, I don't know how you think of it. So I'm not trying to, you know what? I am trying to call people out. So if you look in 2025, that was all their best quarters when the price of Bitcoin was the highest. Q3 2025 is number 6. Q2 2025 is the 5th best quarter. And look at the price of Bitcoin,
Yep.
97,000 and 115,000.
Right.
So when the price is high, they acquire Bitcoin. When the price is low, they acquire it. That's the way I look at it. That's what the math tells me.
Yeah. It's going to be so interesting to see now that, Stretch has been out there, what it can do in a bull market. The problem is, we might have to sit around a while and at these levels to find out what they're able to do. Do you think there's a near-term threat, looking forward to Q3, Grain, and Tim, you can jump in on this too, that, because confidence in Stretch has been shaken out a little bit here over the last week, 2 weeks. Do you think Q3 is just going to be so far scaled back in the acquisition levels that Strategy will be able to acquire Bitcoin? Hard to know.
If we knew the future, Tyler, I would be pulling my yacht up next to Michael's in Cannes, and life would be pretty grand. But a comment that you said just a few minutes ago really resonated with me, because if you believe in Bitcoin and you own some Bitcoin and you also need income, so you buy some Stretch, and let's say you're dollar cost averaging, or you have the ability to buy more. You mentioned 33%. If you buy Stretch and it goes back to par and you're getting your dividend, and correct me if I'm missing anything.
Yeah. At $75, it would go up 33% to 100.
So isn't that the best of both worlds? Because you have your Bitcoin with the asymmetric upside, and then you literally have digital credit that you can buy right now that could literally beat the hurdle rate of Bitcoin if you believe Bitcoin's going up at an average ARR of 30% a year. Seems like pretty good, like best of both worlds. Am I
That's
missing
right.
it?
Yeah. I mean, like you guys have said, the structure isn't broken, right? This is we expected a stress test would come, maybe not this violently necessarily, but all nothing's changed in the fundamental structure of what strategy's doing. There's still a Bitcoin accumulation engine, investor confidence, narratives are shaken, some liquidations have happened in Bitcoin, in strategy, in stretch. I think probably some traders got a little too cute, over levering themselves. Thinking that strategy would forever hold that $100 par value or
I'll tell you
very
what.
close to it.
I'll predict the future. Scroll up on this page.
What was
You
that,
can
Mike?
find all
Scroll.
of this.
Scroll. I'm going to predict the future. Scroll up on this page.
I'm trying to promote
Keep on
True
going.
North. You can
Yeah.
find all this at tnorth.com.
This is all at T North. When does strategy hit 1 million Bitcoins? Wow. We actually have a date there. Thursday, October 8th, 2026. Let's assume it slows down from the current rate. And they get to 1 million Bitcoins in November or December. If the price rebounds, right, then they can acquire Bitcoin even faster. But let's just assume there's your bear case. It's still November 5th, right? Right? Oh my God, imagine that we have a website on this. So they get to 1 million Bitcoins. Let's say they get to it by December 1st. And
Sure.
Bitcoin is trading at 90,000 and Stretch is back at 100, right? You're like, oh, Sailor's got 1 million Bitcoins. Stretch is at $100. The ATM is working fine. Let's just assume the stock price is at 250. Not even a high number. It was 197 6 weeks ago. Let's just assume the stock is at 250. People will be like, guess I should have bought the dip. And I'm not telling anybody what to do, but just realize that they already have 847,363 Bitcoins. If you believe in Bitcoin, right, and then you got to believe in this case that the company has the most Bitcoin and is going to be okay, and they only have 10% debt.
By
And go to the
leaps
2
and
million
bounds.
Bitcoin tab.
Yeah. Did you already cover the bull tab?
Hit the bull tab on September 10th. Do I think that's overly aggressive? Probably. I think Bitcoin's got to go up. But if you do the bear case on 2 million bear case, 2028 to get to 2 million Bitcoin, at that, do I think they get there? People are like, what happened? Sailor said 7.5%. Look, first of all, 20 million Bitcoin are not available. Some amount of Bitcoin are lost. People could say it's 1 million to 4 million Bitcoin are just lost. So the 4% number is probably higher based upon the actual Bitcoin that are available. So my takeaway on this is they're going to get to 1 million Bitcoin. And I don't know how you bet against the company that gets, that has 1 million Bitcoin. That's why I don't, somebody could, tell me what I'm missing.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. A lot of the Bitcoiners who hate on the Bitcoin strategy are like, it's over. Strategy is never going to trade at a premium again. Investors learn their lesson. It can never trade above its Bitcoin NAV value. But the inverse, like kind of counter to that, if strategy rebounds, especially by the end of the year, Stretch is trading at par, like you said, the flywheel's running again, and Stretch, comes back 33% up in a couple of months, like how can it ever come down this far off par again? Because like you got to be an idiot to be like shorting it or selling it at distressed prices. If it rebounds from $75 to $100 in a couple months, that's like the bear cases just continue to get wiped out. And that's one thing I think Sailor
So,
just has
yeah,
always been right about.
Right. Can I show my desktop, my screen for a second? Let me see if I can do this. Share screen. Here. Share. So here's Tesla. Okay, you guys can see Tesla. I'm not making this up. I want to tell everybody how things work. Prior to the iPhone, to give context, Apple stock was for widows and orphans, and it was single digit PE ratio. It was single digit. That means it was below 10. PE ratio is price to earnings per share. What it means is how much are you paying for each dollar of gain? For Tesla, you're paying 342. That's the PE ratio for Tesla. You know, there's another company. Give me a second here. There's another company. I don't know if people have heard it. Let's do this. Google. Wait a second. No, I wanted the stock symbol. Google Finance. And I'm going to pick here Google. And let's see. What's the PE ratio? The PE ratio on Google, can you guys see that? Yep. Is right over here, and I can zoom in, is the PE ratio on Google is 25. So if Tesla's PE ratio was 250, you're paying 10 times as much for Tesla. The premium on Tesla is more than 10 times greater than Google. I think Google's a pretty good company. I just do. As part of the mag set. Pick another company. Here, guys, I want to talk about valuations, how they're out of control. We could pick AAPL, Apple. Apple's PE ratio, right? Look at it, is 33. You pay $33 for every dollar of earnings that Apple puts out. Tesla is 10 times more expensive. And everybody's like, well, that's because they got robo-taxis and full self-driving and Elon Musk is a genius. Okay. But is it worth 10 times for cash? It's the same cash flow, right? The cash flow, you're paying 10 times as much for that cash flow on a per share basis. So what I'm saying is that if you believe that Bitcoin's going to go to $1 million, or you believe Bitcoin's going to go to $200,000 or $300,000, then you would say, it's trading at a discount now. That's the way that you would look at it. The fact that Tesla's off by a 10x shows that valuations can be really weird. So right now, I think that Strategy's valuation is poor, right? I mean, the price is really low right now. But when we look at other valuations, they're really, there's big difference in it. So let's see if we pick something like here. SpaceX. I don't even know if SpaceX, we'll see it.
They might not because they haven't
EPS. It's a negative number.
Yeah.
So their PE ratio, it would be, because once it's zero and it's actually a negative number, that PE ratio is undefined. It's not zero. It's right here. It's a negative number. And it's negative. You're like, how could you, what do they do? If you have your share, they ask you for, give me 72 cents back.
Pass around the hat.
Right. I mean, so I'm looking at these numbers and people are like, Grain, you just make shit up all the time. I'm like, I didn't make, this is the Google website. I'm like, everybody's like, you know what most people say to me? Grain, your math is correct. We just don't agree with your narrative. I'm like, okay, so you don't have any math to back up what you're saying? No. So what I think is right now is that it's the good and the bad. What's the good part of Bitcoin? You could sell $1 billion of it on Saturday night. What's the bad part? You could sell $1 billion of Bitcoin on Saturday night. What's the good part of the company Strategy? They have a website that updates every 15 seconds with a dashboard. That's the good part. What's the bad part? They got a website that updates every 15 seconds. And everybody's like, you see, I think that people are overthinking this right now. And they're like, and it's always the tail risk. And I could stop sharing. People seem to always drop back to, it's either going to go bankrupt or go to zero, or it's going to infinity. I think the world is a little, some shades of gray.
That's right. No, that's really well said, Mike. Yeah, we take a lot of binary outcomes to this. You're either a Bitcoin doomer and it's going to zero, or you're like us and it's just going up forever. Laura.
Tyler, I've just learned to embrace it, right? I have all of my pictures ready. My It's So Over pictures are ready, and my We're So Back pictures are ready. And sometimes you use them on the same day. You just don't know. It's like, it's so over, and then it's lunchtime.
That's right. And it's almost as if Strategy is trading like amplified Bitcoin exposure.
Oh my God. I wonder where they got the word amplified from. It's just like...
Go figure. Well, thanks guys for jumping on for this update. Blood is on the streets on Twitter, but when in doubt, zoom out. Check out those tools at bitcointreasuries.net. Check out the tools at T-North Strategies Dashboard. You can check out all this stuff in real time. Grain of Salt. Make sure to follow him at his new handle at Grain of Salt SF. That's right. And Tim Kotzman, thanks for joining, the man in the orange tie.
How has it been 30 minutes already? Well, I thought we were going to go for like another hour. I'm sure that Grant and I could make it happen.
Look, I'll say this. Look, when in doubt, zoom out. Look, you have to have conviction. Either look, if you don't believe in Bitcoin, then you wouldn't buy Bitcoin. If you don't believe in Bitcoin, you wouldn't buy strategy. The thing that I find the oddest thing is that people that are hoping for Saylor's demise tends to come from the biggest Bitcoin supporters. And I find that to be counterintuitive or hypocritical. And look, the equity market exists for a reason. I'll use SpaceX as an example. If they have a $2 trillion valuation, why did they sell $75 billion worth of equity, 4% of the float? Because they needed $75 billion in cash. Otherwise, the public markets wouldn't exist. They would stay private forever. And so that's why public markets exist. And I'm not saying whether it was good or bad. I'm just saying that's the way the world is. And a lot of Bitcoiners just don't believe in public markets.
Right. That's the nature of equities. Any of this stuff takes on risk. There's a derivative of Bitcoin is just going to trade, based on sentiment, based on, a number of factors. But I think strategies, balance sheet is Teflon. If you believe in Bitcoin, I think it's nonsense if you don't believe in what strategy's doing or you haven't been paying attention. So for grain of salt.
I think they have a fortress. Thank you, Tim.
Do.
Take care, guys.
Thanks, guys, for popping in, and shout out Sandeepstar with all the comments. He says blaming STRC price on selling 32 Bitcoin or using cash to pay converts is nonsense. This could have happened regardless of those events. Look at SATA, daily dividends, no debt, and it also crashed. So, yep, there's always zoom out, take the long-term approach, and we'll be